I call myself Fish Game News, but at the same time, I typically only talk about Nintendo. I think it's time to change that. I'm going to cover the PlayStation Showcase. It's State of Play. Sony Direct. I'll just call it that. I couldn't actually watch it live, though, because when it was going on, I was at the movie theater watching Guardians 3. So this video might come out a day late. Anyway, we'll start off with some comic crap, and I honestly thought this was going to be a new Payday or a new Watch Dogs. It's whatever this is. And then this guy with the most generic name ever conceived starts talking about something. I couldn't hear it because I was watching it on the TV, it glitched, and all I could hear was this really emotional and soothing music that definitely did not help me. Which is something that persisted throughout the next trailer, which I'm guessing it's supposed to be a funny little infomercial. Has this ever happened to you type deal? But the entire time, all I could think of was, this is Starship Troopers the video game. And then it turned out to be a sequel to a game I've never heard of. Up next is an EA original fantasy FPS called Immortals of Avium. You lost me at EA, you lost me for a third FPS. And then there was this really cool looking motorcycle game, which reminded me of that Ultra Kill game that I keep seeing. And then it turned out to be a sequel to a game I've never heard of. After that one, I got tired of not being able to hear things, and I switched from my TV to my brand new laptop that I got for college. It's really good, and it's also why I sound weird. And I am so glad that I did, because the next game looks like a really cool sword fighting game. The character action game genre is my favorite genre, and this looks like it's either going to be that or a Soulsborne, which isn't too far off. And then it turned out to be a sequel to a game I've never heard of. And after that was a trailer for a game that I thought was Journey 2. It looked like it, sounded like it, smelled like it, and it was made by the same developers. But it turned out to be a game called Sword of the Sea. So it turned out to not be a sequel to a game that I have heard of and played. And then they randomly decided to show us a bunch of shapes while rattling off a speech that was probably ripped directly from either a drug commercial or an insurance commercial, and I mean, come on. And then it turned out to be a sequel to a game I've never heard of. And then there was a random indie short film right in the middle of the presentation. I mean, that was beautiful, but this doesn't belong here. This isn't Sundance. Then there was this cute little game called Cat Quest. I thought that it looked like a good game for Emma and me to play, and then I saw that the gameplay looked horrendous. Foam Stars! I saw Squaresoft's logo and freaked out a bit, but it ended up just being Splatoon with a reason to check certain green websites. The Plucky Squire. This is another one of those storybook games where you look at it and it looks cool, and then you forget about it 10 minutes later. Teardown. This is just Minecraft meets GTA. And next up, we get the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. Now, this is big, but let's not get our hopes up. Don't forget, this isn't made by Hideo Kojima. And even if it was, MGS3 on its own definitely wasn't my favorite Metal Gear. Although that could just be because I was playing the 3DS version, meaning I had to watch the handjob scene at 5 frames a second on a 3-inch display. Also, why Delta? Why is it called Delta? Thankfully, they're also re-releasing the first 3 games in the collection. As for why they're releasing Metal Gear Solid 3 again, when they are remaking it as Metal Gear Solid Delta, I have no idea. Towers of Aghasba looks like another open-world game that draws way too much from Breath of the Wild, because apparently that's the only open-world game you're allowed to draw inspiration from. But hey, at least it has these things. We get another trailer for Final Fantasy XVI. It looks absolutely incredible, and I'm definitely going to get it if I ever get a PS5. But I also want to know what this means. Then there was this really neat-looking horror game made by the Epic Games. The guys who did Fortnite? And then it turned out to be a sequel to a game I've never heard of. And then we get a new Assassin's Creed game. Alright, sure, my dad likes those. And then we get another indie film masquerading as a video game trailer. This one's called Revenant Hill, and I can't shake the feeling that this one's based off of Pete the Cat. Grand Blue, you ever heard of Grand Blue? No, you haven't. Then we get another trailer for Street Fighter 6, and I am just not a fan of what they did to Ryu. Then we have Ultros, another indie film pretending to be a trailer. Wait, no, this one has gameplay, and it's a Metroidvania, so I'm sold. Tower of Fantasy, I can sense Chinese power from a mile away. Here we have a fantasy game made by Capcom. I thought it was going to be a Breath of Fire thing. And then it turned out to be a sequel to a game I've never heard of. Alright, that's not entirely true. That's actually a game that I have heard of, and I've actually been interested in playing it for a while. I just haven't gotten around to it for some reason. Five Nights at Freddy's. Yep, okay. Hold it. I've done suicide jokes for 2 videos in a row. I don't need to go for a third one and come off as insensitive. And then we get some PSVR 2 news, starting with Resident Evil 4 VR, which I thought we already had. And this zombie game, which looks really freaking funny and hilarious, and I just said the same thing twice. I'm definitely going to have to play it. And then it turned out to be a sequel to a game I've never heard of. And then we have Crossfire Sierra Squad, which is Raid the video game. Don't say anything. Synapse, it just looks like super hot. Beat Saber gets more DLC featuring Queen songs that are probably already modded into the game. And then we have a new game by Bungie. And then it turned out to be a reboot to a game I've never heard of. And then more content for Destiny 2. You know, I actually almost got Destiny 1 on PS3 once I got my PS3, until a GameStop employee told me that was a bad idea because the base game doesn't have any content. And then they showed us some space and said that there was a game coming out called Conquered. They showed nothing. And then there was a trailer for the Gran Turismo movie coming out. You know, I actually saw a longer trailer at the movie theater. And then Jim Ryan comes back, apparently completely British, and he says that there's one more announcement, but before that, Nintendo Switch. And see, this looks cool, but for one thing, it's streaming, which means you need a constant internet connection. And for another thing, it's streaming. So if you're like me and you only get physical games, that means if you're going to take this on the road, I mean, for one thing, internet connection, and for another, that means you can only play one game at a time because you can only have one game in the console at a time. But as for that big final announcement, Spider-Man 2. I thought we already knew about this. And the first thing you see is Kraven. I thought we already knew about this. And then they show some gameplay, and Peter Parker has the black suit from Spider-Man 3, and that is awesome. That is what I like to see. I haven't played the original Spider-Man game for PS4. I need to, because the gameplay for this looks fantastic. It's also incredibly long. No trailer needs to be this long, even if it's at the end. Nintendo knows how to do it. Apparently, Sony doesn't. So that's fun. So have fun spending, I think it was like 10 minutes on that one game, even if it was the last one. That is ridiculous. And that's the event. That was, well, it wasn't as good as, say, Nintendo's offerings, but I mean, it was fine. It was more than I was expecting. I mean, Metal Gear Solid 3 alone pretty much made the whole thing worth it. Even if Metal Gear Solid 3 isn't my favorite, it's still, well, it's still something. Something Metal Gear related. So, I don't know if I'll be watching any more of these. I think I'll just stick with Nintendo, but at least it was fun. And, so I don't think this is more. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be fine.